Africa. In the 1600s, Africa was largely impacted by the transatlantic slave trade. Europeans, primarily the Portuguese and Dutch, forcibly brought Africans to the newly discovered Americas. Certain West African kingdoms, like Dahomey, also grew wealthy and powerful by selling captives of war.
From a Portuguese slaver's perspective, I was born in Lisbon, the son of a merchant who traded with Africa and the Indies. I learned to sail and navigate from an early age, and I joined my father's ship as an apprentice when I was 14. I worked hard and learned fast, and by the time I was 20, I was a skilled sailor and a trusted officer. I also learned the business of buying and selling slaves, which was the most profitable part of our trade. We sailed to the coast of West Africa, where we had contacts with local chiefs and traders who supplied us with captives from the interior. We paid them with guns, cloth, beads, and other goods that they valued. We also raided some villages and towns ourselves, taking prisoners by force or deception. We did not care much about their origins, cultures, or religions. We only cared about their health, strength, and appearance, which determined their price in the market. We packed the slaves in the hold of our ship, chained together in rows with little space, air, or light. We gave them some water and food, but not enough to keep them healthy or comfortable. Many of them died from disease, starvation, or suffocation. Some of them tried to rebel or escape, but we quickly crushed their resistance with whips, guns, and knives. We did not pity them or treat them as human beings. We saw them as cargo, as merchandise, as units of labor. We sailed across the Atlantic, following the currents and winds that took us to Brazil, where we had a large and growing market for our slaves. There, we sold them to plantation owners, miners, and traders who used them to produce sugar, tobacco, gold, and other commodities. We made a lot of money from this trade, and we used it to buy more goods and slaves, and to live a comfortable and luxurious life in Brazil or Portugal. We did not think much about the moral or ethical implications of our trade. We followed the laws and customs of our country and our church, which sanctioned and supported slavery. We believed that we were doing God's work by bringing civilization and Christianity to the savage and pagan lands of Africa and America. We did not see any contradiction or hypocrisy in our actions. We were proud of our achievements and our wealth, and we did not care about the suffering and the loss that we caused to millions of people.
A Spanish sailor's perspective. I was born in Seville, the son of a poor and humble family. I had no education or prospects, and I joined the Navy as a way to escape poverty and find adventure. I was 16 when I enlisted, and I soon learned the harsh realities of life at sea. I had to endure long and dangerous voyages, harsh discipline, low pay, and poor food. I also had to face the constant threat of enemy attacks, storms, and shipwrecks. I was assigned to a ship that sailed to Florida and the Carolinas, where the Spanish had established colonies and missions. We carried soldiers, settlers, priests, and supplies. But we also carried slaves, who were brought from Africa or captured from the local natives. The slaves were treated worse than animals, and many of them died or were killed during the journey. I hated to see their misery and their pain, but I had no choice but to obey orders and do my duty. I was also afraid of being accused of heresy or treason, which could cost me my life or my freedom. The Spanish Inquisition was very powerful and ruthless, and it persecuted anyone who did not conform to the Catholic faith or the king's authority. I had to pretend to be a convert and a devout and loyal subject, even though I had doubts and questions about my religion and my government. I had to hide my true feelings and thoughts, and to just follow the rules and rituals of the church and the state. To survive. I did not enjoy or benefit from the slave trade, but I also had no power to oppose or resist it. I was a simple and ignorant sailor who had no voice or power to change anything. I was a victim of the system, as much as the slaves were. I only hoped to survive and to return to my home and my family, if I ever could have one.
Du Ackland's perspective. I was born in Alada, the son of a king and a queen. I was raised to be a warrior and a leader, and I inherited the throne when I was 25. I ruled over a large and powerful kingdom, which stretched from the coast to the inland. I had many enemies and rivals who wanted to challenge my authority and take my lands. I fought many wars and battles, and I always emerged victorious. I was also a trader and a diplomat who had contacts and alliances with other kingdoms and peoples, both in Africa and across the sea. I traded with the Europeans who came to our coast with their ships and their goods. I bought from them guns, cloth, beads, and other things that I needed or wanted. I sold to them gold, ivory, pepper, and other things that they valued. I also sold to them slaves who were my captives from the wars that I waged. I did not see anything wrong or shameful in selling slaves. I was doing them a favor by sparing their lives and giving them a chance to serve a new master. I was also making them pay for their crimes and their defeats by taking away their freedom and their dignity. I was also converting them to Islam, which was the true and only faith, and which I had embraced and spread in my kingdom. I was also enriching myself and my people by gaining more wealth and more power. I did not care about the fate or the feelings of the slaves that I sold. I did not know or care where they went or what they did. I did not consider them as my brothers or sisters or as human beings. I saw them as commodities, as products, as sources of income. In West Africa, the kingdom of Dahomey, now Benin, was a significant player in the slave trade. The kingdom was founded around 1600 and the first king was Doaklin. However, the foundational king for Dahomey is often considered to be Huegbadja, c. 1645 to 1685, who built the royal palaces of Abomey and began raiding and taking over towns outside of the Abomey Plateau. Dahomey was known for its strong military and organized slave raids, capturing individuals from neighboring tribes and selling them to European traders. The majority of African captives were exported from the coast of West Africa, some 3,000 miles between what is now Senegal and Angola, and mostly from modern Benin, Nigeria, and Cameroon. Other African tribes and kingdoms involved in the slave trade included the Ashanti, Oyo, and Kingdom of Wida.
An African slaver's perspective. I was born in Abomey, the capital of Dahomey, the son of a noble and a warrior. I was trained to be a soldier and a slaver, and I joined the king's army when I was 15. I fought many battles and raids, and I always obeyed the orders of my superiors. I was proud to serve my king and my country, and to bring glory and wealth to my family. We raided the villages and towns of our enemies, such as the Yoruba, the Yu, the Mahi, and the Aja. We attacked them at dawn or at night, when they were sleeping or unprepared. We killed the men who resisted, and we captured the women, children, and old people. We also captured some young men who were strong and healthy, and who could be trained to be soldiers or workers. We did not care about their origins, cultures, or religions. We only cared about their value in the market. We chained the captives together and marched them to the coast, where we sold them to the Europeans, who came with their ships and their goods. We bargained with them and tried to get the best price for our slaves. We also bought from them guns, gunpowder, bullets, tools, cookingware, fabrics, cowrie shells, tobacco, pipes, and animals. We used these goods to improve our lives and to capture more slaves. We did not see anything wrong or shameful in selling slaves. We were doing them a favor by sparing their lives and giving them a chance to serve a new master. We were also making them pay for their crimes and their defeats by taking away their freedom and their dignity. We were also enriching ourselves and our people by gaining more wealth and more power. Besides the extra beautiful women we kept as our additional wives, we did not care about the fate or the feelings of the slaves that we sold. We did not know or care where they went or what they did. We did not consider them as our brothers or sisters, or as human beings. We saw them as commodities, as products, as sources of income. We were proud of our achievements and our glory, and we did not worry about the consequences or the costs of our trade.
A slave's perspective. I was born in a small village in the Yu land, the daughter of a farmer and a weaver. I had a happy and peaceful life with my parents, my siblings, and my friends. I learned to farm and to weave, and I hoped to marry and have children of my own. One day our village was attacked by the Dahomey soldiers, who came with guns and swords. They killed many of our people, and they captured the rest of us. They separated us from our families and our loved ones, and they chained us together. They beat us and whipped us, and they forced us to walk for many days without enough food or water. Many of us died on the way from hunger, thirst, or sickness. Some of us tried to escape or to kill ourselves, but we were caught and punished. One of my sisters they kept for a wife along with our family's cattle and goats. I was just used for pleasure and then shackled. If the men were too old, they were simply killed. We reached our African coast, where we saw the big ships and the white men. The Dahomey soldiers sold us to them, and they put us in the ships. They packed us in the dark and dirty hold, where we could not move or breathe. They gave us some water and stale, disgusting food, but not enough to keep us healthy or comfortable. Many of us died from disease, starvation, or suffocation. Some of us tried to rebel or escape, but we were quickly crushed by their guns and knives. They did not pity us or treat us as human beings. For weeks, we were packed like animals to be slaughtered for food. We were just sacks of cargo, merchandise, units of money. They also cleaned the hold every day, removing the dead bodies and the waste. This was the most terrifying and painful moment, as they dragged us out of the hold and threw us into the sea or the fire. They often beat us or cut us, and they had no mercy or compassion. They also made us see and smell the corpses and the excrement, which broke our spirits and our hearts. When we reached America, they sold us to the masters, who used us to produce sugar, tobacco, gold, and other commodities. They made a lot of money from this trade, but they did not care about our lives or our happiness. They also bought more supplies and more slaves, and they prepared for the next voyage. They had no rest or peace, and they had no conscience or remorse. They only felt greed, pride, and hatred. We sailed across the sea to a place that we did not know or understand. We did not know what awaited us there or what they would do to us. We only knew that we had lost everything that we loved and cherished, and that we had no hope or future. We only felt fear, pain, and despair.
The rise of the Kingdom of Dahomey coincided with the growth of the slave trade in the area. The kingdom became a major source of slaves in the slave trade at Alada and Whydah. In many African societies, marriages were arranged by families and involved various rituals. Polygamy was practiced in many African societies. While Islam had spread to parts of West Africa by the 1600s, the region was home to a variety of religious practices. Some West African societies practiced Islam, while others followed traditional African religions. The treatment and condition of slaves on Spanish ships were brutal. Slaves were underfed and brutally treated, causing many to die before even arriving at their destination. The conditions on the ships were cramped and unsanitary.